Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station on 98.1 FM and AM 1220. This is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, back for another opportunity to talk about the two things we are not supposed to talk about in public, politics and religion. And by the way, the IRS says we can. More on that in just a minute. Today, we'll be promised an interesting show. The first half is going to be all federal news, national news. We're going to talk about Pam Bondi and whether or not Pam Bondi is the right person for the job. I think her time is limited there at the White House. We're going to talk about how conspiracies originate. Unfortunately, they definitely do get started really quickly. We've been now, 60 years since the Kennedy assassination, and yet we still do not have all the information that we would like concerning President Kennedy's assassination. So here we are, and we're trying to figure out now whether or not a 1-minute clip that is not in a video that was released by the Department of Justice is being kept back from us. Today, we have with us no stranger to Politics in the Pulpit, Jennifer Oliver O'Connell. She is a Red State contributor. She writes for 1819 News. She's a political analyst. As the girl turns, she is a writer par excellence. Jennifer, how are you?
Well, hello, Pastor Jerry. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for those lovely compliments. I appreciate it.
Well, they're well-deserved, Jennifer, and that's why we like having you on. You're one of the political analysts that I like to go to because you seem to be informed in a well-rounded sense because you know stuff about Christianity. You wrote a great article about Jimmy Swaggart a week or so ago. And then you just did something the other day in reference to Netanyahu encouraging the Nobel Peace Prize to be awarded to Donald Trump, which we'll talk about in just a few seconds. But I wanted to tee up this particular conversation at the beginning here about the Epstein rollout. And I wanted you to listen to a minute-and-a-half clip or so of yesterday's cabinet meeting where the president interrupted the reporter, tried to answer for Pam Bondi, kind of gave the notion to Pam, hey, you don't need to answer this. Pam says, I'm going to answer it. And I want you to listen to this, and then I want to get your take on the other side.
Yeah, sure.
Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file, along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively, the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
All right, Jennifer Oliver O'Connell. Pam Bondi did herself no favor. That explanation was convoluted. I don't even know if it was even great. What say you?
Yeah, I think I have no idea why she chose to speak on it, because I agree it was convoluted, not to mention it completely contradicts what she has said in the past. A lot of people are having fits over President Trump and the statement that he made. I don't blame him at all. He's not the one that's been trotting this out for, the last 4 or 5 months since the administration has been up and running. It's been the Department of Justice and Bondi who gets the blame for this, as far as I'm concerned.
And let's just broaden it out too, Jennifer. I mean, before Kash Patel was put in there, Kash Patel talked about this, and then Dan Bongino, when he was still nationally broadcasting before he got into the FBI, second in charge, he talked about this ad nauseum, about the client list and all this. And now it seems as if what we're hearing from them now, and again, I need to emphasize, I am a Trump supporter. I love the administration, but I think it's important that if those within the family can't criticize those within the family, then I guess there's no reason for us to be in the family, right? So
Right.
I just think they seem to be saying to us, there's nothing to see here, move on, let's talk about other news.
That is what they're saying, but I also, if we can move to the spiritual lens of things, in terms of what we know we are up against with cases or just human trafficking in and of itself. It's demonic.
Yeah.
It's satanic. It is something that is not one country. It's a global horror that breaks God's heart, that destroys lives. So the fact that the American government is saying, let's put a pause on this, let's move along here, says to me that there are bigger forces at work that have nothing to do with the United States.
You're talking about that passage in Ephesians where Paul says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual darkness, against principalities in high places. And the way that would be translated is that high places is talking about high places in terms of government as well. And, one of the things I said last night to my wife, I was at a city council meeting, which we're going to be talking about in the next half hour with a local official here. But I told my wife, I says, here we are. We have fought for this guy to get in there. And, of course, I'm still fighting for him. But I just feel as if this was a really big letdown. And I don't want it to feel that way. But let me ask you a follow-up question, Jennifer. Do you think, as Megyn Kelly postulated yesterday on her podcast, do you feel that Pam Bondi's days are numbered?
I would lean toward that assessment, yeah, just because she as you said, she didn't do herself any favors in terms of Jeffrey Epstein, as well as other things that she's done. She's constantly on Fox News. It looks like she's toned it back a little bit, but all over Fox News promising this, saying that, and nothing, as far as we know, is being done. So I'm not sure that she is the best person to be at the head of this, as well as just, as people are complaining, people who are MAGA, people who aren't MAGA are complaining that we want to see things actually happen.
Do you remember
Tired of talking about them?
Do you remember who Donald Trump originally wanted for this position?
Matt Gaetz.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think Matt Gaetz would try to get to the bottom of this?
No, I think Matt Gaetz would be leaving that alone. He would be following whatever Trump's lead is. Not saying that Bondi is not, but a lot of times what the president is doing, what she is doing, don't seem to be very much aligned, and sometimes it is.
Yeah.
But I don't think Matt Gaetz would be touching this with a 10-foot pole. But again, I allude back to, and I say this over X. There's bigger things at work going on here, and
I completely agree.
We don't know that the American government is not doing something through all of these organizations that are combating human trafficking. And, they are arresting pedophiles. They are breaking up rings. So we don't know what might be going on, but either Epstein was a distraction or the whole Epstein thing is a way bigger morass than the United States is able to deal with, and they have other actors in the background dealing with it.
Well, I pray and hope that they're able to clean this up and maybe give us a little bit more of a better explanation in the future. And as I just said, I do believe that Pam Bondi's days are numbered, and I think you believe the same thing as well. But let's move on to something that is very tragic, more so tragic than even just the rollout of the Epstein files here. But obviously, there's been well over 100 victims in these floods in Kerrville, Texas, with Camp Mystic. And I never even knew about this camp, to be totally honest with you, Jennifer, until this whole thing occurred over the weekend. And, initial reports were a dozen kids were killed, and now here we are Wednesday, and it's, well over 100, and who knows how many more will be found. But the Democrats are taking a page out of Rahm Emanuel's playbook and making sure that no tragedy goes to waste, and are blaming the Trump administration and the DOGE cuts on weather-related alarms that supposedly did or did not go off during these tragic rainstorms. What are your thoughts on all of that? Will that come back to bite Trump, or is this much ado about nothing and the Democrats just trying to get a game plan going?
The Democrats are just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. And they, just as they have done in the past, they're just looking like ghouls to capitalize on the tragic death and ongoing tragedy, because they're still in a recovery phase of children who, unbeknownst to them, were caught in the throes of Mother Nature, for lack of a better word. And that's what it was. Even you have the scientists who run these organizations and who are part of these, the so-called experts, saying that these are, centuries events that happen. We have no control over that. We were overstaffed that day. Mm-hmm. Reporting on this. So trying to blame the government or NOAA cuts is stupid.
Yeah,
and misinformation, deliberate misinformation.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in,
deliberately peddling that out.
If you're just tuning in today to Politics in the Pulpit, you're listening to Jennifer Oliver O'Connell. She's a Red State contributor, 1819 News, As the Girl Turns, and all of that wonderful stuff out there that you can see on several platforms. Jennifer, you just recently wrote an article for Red State that came out, I believe, yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, where you mentioned Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel nominates Donald J. Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Let's just say that this does get taken up, and let's say, just for conversation, that he does indeed get the Nobel Peace Prize. Would this cause not only liberal heads to explode, but do you think liberals would then try to get rid of the Nobel Peace Prize altogether? I mean, seriously, that's going to happen, right?
Yeah, it would definitely cause heads to explode for sure. And yeah, it would definitely be a push of either we get rid of it or, well, it never meant anything anyway.
I mean, it's got to happen, right, Jennifer?
I mean, if it does happen, the Nobel Committee is, I mean, first of all, it doesn't have a great deal of relevance when you elect someone for just being, or you nominate someone and have them win the prize just for being elected. That was Obama, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, and he hadn't done anything in office yet. So that definitely makes it lose its relevance anyway. So if somehow the Nobel Committee decides, well, yeah, we're going to give it to them, pressure, whatever, yeah, it'll definitely go out of total relevance once that's done, because the left doesn't want to be bothered with having President Trump as a Nobel Prize winner. I'd frankly rather see him on Mount Rushmore, actually.
Then they would probably get rid of Mount Rushmore, and they would probably excommunicate the Dakotas from the United States of America.
They could try.
And they probably
or
might
you'd
accomplish
have
it.
crazy Antifa idiots trying to blow it up,
Before we let you go today, Jennifer, I wanted to get your take on a ruling that just came out from the Internal Revenue Service. I sent you this yesterday, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And it was in reference to a critical clarification in a court filing concerning pastors and politics. The name of this show, Jennifer, is called Politics and the Pulpit. And
Yes.
in this particular clarification, they say the IRS stated that a pastor or church speaking about political issues and even candidates to its members does not violate the tax code or jeopardize the church's tax-exempt status. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Jennifer. This is too little too late. I've been at this for 23 years. I've been just doing whatever I want to do. All right?
Right.
And I've already known that even as a 501c3, I can do what I want to do. I know what the Johnson Amendment says. I know what the history of the Johnson Amendment's all about. But the fact of the matter is, what say you, and why did the IRS come out with this ruling just yesterday? What's the point of this clarification? What's the intended purpose here?
Because there are left-leaning organizations that are, especially now that Trump is back in office, who are mounting campaigns to place a chilling effect on speech, and also to remove the tax-exempt status of preachers and organizations and things like that who either have, endorsed Trump or who have spoken out politically about certain cultural issues. So I hear that Trump, this was one of the things on his list of we need to deal with this, so that was wise on his part to say this needs to be clarified. Because as well as I do, the left has been doing this for decades. LGBTQ all over the pulpit.
Yeah.
And that's not a political statement. They've been doing it for decades, and nobody blinks an eyelash. But as soon as someone right-leaning or conservative does it, it's, we have to take away their tax-exempt status, separation of church and state. So even though you were brave enough and you were wise enough to continue to do what God has called you to do and be culturally relevant in terms of speaking to the culture, which is what the Word of God is supposed to do, not be affected by the culture, but speak to the culture. So many of your brethren and sister and on the pulpit, well, I guess you're not on the sister part, but so many people have been afraid to speak up and to take those positions.
You are absolutely right, Jennifer, and we got to take a hard break here. But Jennifer Oliver O'Connell, thank you so much for joining us today on Politics in the Pulpit. Red State contributor, 1819 News, political analyst par excellence. Read her near stuff on Red State. Thank you so much, dear, and God bless you as you enjoy the state of Alabama.
Thanks, Jerry. Have a great evening.
All right. When we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, we'll be joined in studio with Denise Light to talk about the dust-up here in Santa Clarita when we're back on your hometown station. All right, we're back here live on Politics in the Pulpit. This is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, back for another opportunity again to talk about the two things we're not supposed to talk about in public, religion and politics, and yes, they do indeed mix. We just got done talking about national news with Jennifer Oliver O'Connell with Red State, 1819 News. Now we're going to focus our attention on local politics, especially here in Santa Clarita. I have with me today Denise Light, who is a family law attorney, well-respected, might I add, a mom, and now former planning commissioner.
That's right.
Now, I want you to give our listeners the straight scoop as to what occurred last night at the Santa Clarita City Council meeting, and do you believe that the three who actually voted, we already know one was going to vote the way that she was going to vote, it was the other two, Do we think this was already pre-planned, and do we think this was just extemporaneous? This is the decision they made last night.
Let me give you some background. So as a planning commissioner, our job is to ask factual questions that lead to the proper growth of our city. And back in March, there was a developer who made his presentation, and while he was making the presentation, he said that he had negotiated an impact fee for the removal of the historical courthouse here. That was not in our planning materials. So I simply said, negotiated with who? And he stammered and said, a council member. And I wasn't thinking anything about it, so I just continued on. Well, due to investigative reporting by KHTS and the Signal, it turns out that he was privately negotiating with Lorraine West for this $750,000 impact fee for historical purposes. Now, she negotiated it for the Historical Society, but when all of this came down, she changed her tune a little bit and said she was negotiating on behalf of the city. Irregardless, my question prevented $750,000 from going to historical purposes and went back into the community pot for the city to use however it deemed fit, and it ended up getting used. But that wasn't the point. The point was that negotiation was not in our materials, and I asked an innocent question that led to backlash upon Councilmember West. A subsequent development came to us the following month, and there was another $325,000 impact fee for another project. And it came to us once, we sent it back, he came back to us, and the first time it came to us, we had said we wanted the impact fee to pay for downtown Newhall parking because businesses need parking down here so their customers can frequent them. When he came back the second time, he said, well, I want my impact fee to go to Hart Park. Well, now my antenna are up, of course, and I asked the city attorney whether we could move that money elsewhere. And he said, well, because it's a donation, you really can't tell a donor what to do with his money. You can ask him if he will reallocate it. So I said, sir, are you willing to reallocate your money at least half towards parking? And he resistantly said yes. So it's not surprising that Councilmember West is upset with me because I basically cost her pet project about $1 million. Now the city can use this money for parking or whatever the greatest good for the taxpayer is. And after those two meetings, she sent me an email demanding that I resigned. And I couldn't understand why. So I immediately responded and I said, why do you want me to resign? Didn't respond. And then she makes a motion to remove me as the planning commissioner. So last night's meeting was the motion to remove me. Honestly, I did not know what to expect. There was a room, as you know, full of people. And when you've been in business 27 years, you expect that there's going to be some detractors, criticizing you or whatever. And I can very proudly say that out of the 29 speakers that spoke on this matter, 27 of them spoke in support of me and 2 did not. And 2 really didn't have anything to say about my personality or my job performance. It was tangentially on the side. And so your question was that planned? And the answer is 100% yes. Because when Councilmember Yes was speaking, she lauded me. She said, I'm a great person. Have great intelligence. I'm a hard worker. Well, if that's the case, why would you want to remove me? But then she said, and I wish you all the best. And when you wish somebody the best, you already know the outcome, right? You already know what is going to happen. And everybody in that room heard that. And so it was clear from every single person that this was a psyop, some play actors just performing the part to bend to Councilmember West's will. And it's really unfortunate because council members Ayala and Miranda are really taking a lot of brunt for their votes for last night. They're basically taking a political bullet for Lorraine. And I don't know why anybody would do that. This was a common sense vote and it should have been voted no.
And in particular, I'll be honest with you, I kind of had an inclination of what Bill would do, Bill Miranda. I was a little taken aback by what Councilmember Patsy Ayala did. I'm just wondering if the way I explained this morning to a friend on the phone was, just as the Epstein rollout with Pam Bondi was such a cluster, I think this is going to be the equivalent for Patsy Ayala of a Epstein rollout, because I don't think she calculated what kind of damage this might do to her down the road.
She clearly didn't, and it's unfortunate that she does not have better advisors, because I thought maybe she would have set herself up to be the hero last night. And how could she have done that? She could have let this discussion go on, and she could have immediately made a motion to remove this item from the agenda, that this is not, or make a motion to a no vote motion, and she would have looked like the grown up in the room. She's the new kid on the dais. She would have looked like the biggest problem solver and uniter, right? But she shot herself in the foot. And I don't even know why you would take a political bullet for somebody on such a common sense issue. Like, I think it's going to be possibly career ending for both of them, because if you look at social media today, Lorraine's not bearing most of the heat. It's Bill and Patsy in a very big way.
That is true. And so now we have the outcome that we did not want, but we got it anyway. So what I want to know from you is, are you running for Santa Clarita City Council?
100% yes.
And what district are you running in?
I am in District 2, which encompasses parts of Newhall, Circle J Ranch, Old Orchard Village, parts of Valencia, and tiny bits of Saugus. So yes, I am running. I am running my campaign to bring transparency back to government. In this day and age, people want to know where their money is going. They want to know that it's being used effectively. They want to have trust in their leaders. And last night didn't damage just me as a planning commissioner. It damaged the body of our government, for people to have trust that they were going to do the right thing and hold their own colleagues accountable if needed. And so I can take it. I listen, I fight for a living. This fight, it's just started, right? There's 18 months to election season. I've had cases that last 5, 6, 7 years. I can go the distance. I will go to the distance. But it's sad for me that our city has been tarnished now by this, because it's just inconceivable.
Now, the district that you're running, Denise, is there an incumbent there?
Councilmember Miranda lives in my district, yes.
And is the intention to unseat Councilmember Miranda, or is he termed out?
No, he can run again. I don't know. He's told several people he's not running again. He's told other people he is running again. I don't know what his intention is. I certainly am not asking him, and I certainly don't care at this point. I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do, and he's going to do whatever he feels is right.
Yeah. And I did see your post from last night where you said we're taking lemons and making lemonade.
Yes.
And you had a big group photo with a lot of the folks who supported you last night. I had to step out because my wife said leave. But but unfortunately, I had some folks call me later and say, here's what the vote was. How energized is the Light team behind Denise Light?
None of us could sleep last night. We're plotting, we're planning our chess moves. This is a long game. You can't be too excited too soon. You got to have a relaxed, you can't get too high, too excited. You can't get too depressed. You just have to have a relaxed intensity and keep going. And here's really what I want the people of Santa Clarita to know. I will never stop asking questions. I will never stop inquiring. And people who have nothing to hide nothing. That is what I tell all the people who are going through divorce. If you think something's up, ask your spouse to trade phones for a week. If they resist you, something is wrong, right? Because people who have nothing to hide nothing. And now the people of Santa Clarita don't believe their city government. And that is tragic, because we are a beautiful community. There has been so much good that council members have done for this community. To waste that goodwill, that trust, that political capital over this. And I only was going to be seated there until next November anyways. Like, weigh it out. Weigh the pros and cons, Such a shame. So many people are very disheartened. And what I do want to say one other thing. There were 30 people in that room last night who had never been to a city council meeting, who had never watched a city council meeting online. And they walked out of there going, this is who our leaders are? This is what's running the show? They were shocked and appalled. And so my volunteer list is growing. info@electdeniselight.com is my volunteer email address. People can sign up there, or they can donate electdeniselight.com, because I will not stop asking questions about money. It's very important.
So I have heard that there is an attempt now to oust Lorene West with a potential recall. Is that something you'd advocate for?
I haven't, I've heard that like 5 minutes ago. I haven't really given it any thought. Listen, we've seen what happened with the recall with Gavin Newsom 3 times. Here's what I feel about recalls. I would rather see people, instead of doing something for the negative, I would rather see them do something for the positive. Put that time, money, energy, effort into getting good quality candidates into office instead of just removing them. That's what I would like to see, because recalls take a lot of effort, they take a lot of money, they take a lot of time, and I would rather see that pushed into change.
And to be honest with you, I only heard about it this morning, and I would concur with you. I think recalls tend to be more damaging to the people who are trying to recall, as opposed to empowering the person that they are recalling.
Right.
And they end up winning, and then they have a mandate.
Right. And that's why when people ask me, like, what do you feel about the recall of Gavin Newsom? Please don't do it. It gives him an unlimited war chest. There's no campaign limits on recall monies. If you want him to have a successful run for the presidency, go ahead and try and recall him and give money, because that's all recalls do. So I would not be supportive of that. I certainly wouldn't participate in it.
Obviously, you've said as you're running that you want to bring transparency back to local government. What are some of the other things that Denise would like to do in Santa Clarita? Obviously, this is, as I said last night and as others said last night, this is a safe place to live. We love this community. I always like to tell people the line of demarcation to tell the difference between Santa Clarita and the San Fernando Valley is the Newhall Pass.
Yep.
Once you cross that Newhall Pass and go south, it is a whole new world.
Yes.
So I thank the Lord for this little area, this little bowl, if you will. What would Denise want to do to improve on that if she were to win?
Well, first, let me say I feel like the city is run very, very well. City Manager Strickland does a great job. We have a flush budget. We have savings. We have reserves. We have beautiful parks and trails. Like, this is a city like no other. So there is nothing wrong with the city. What we want to do is keep it on its good trajectory forward. We want to have responsible development. We want to have traffic concerns addressed. Parking concerns in downtown Newhall is very concerning to the businesses here. I want that senior transportation so that the seniors can come to the Theater Guild and, not have to walk 15 blocks to be able to get there. We do need to talk about public safety. There's a lot of crazy bills in California, and we need to support our sheriff's deputies. These guys and gals are working 30 days straight, triple shifts, overtime. They can't work that tired. It's not right. We have to do better in supporting our law enforcement however we can. I mean, we don't set the budget, that's county, but I feel like we could push a little harder for them to get some support.
Yeah. And again, if people wanted to donate or volunteer to Denise Light's campaign, what would that be again?
The donation website address is electdeniselight.com, and to volunteer, you would send an email to info@electdeniselight.com. Just submit your name, address, phone number, and email address, and we'll put you on our volunteer list.
Denise Light, thank you for coming in today on Politics in the Pulpit and gracing us with your presence. Not just a phone call, but gracing us with your presence.
Thank you so much.
All right, when we come back on Politics in the Pulpit, we'll round it out here in just a few minutes on your hometown station. Thank you. All right, we're back here for our final segment of Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station, KHTS AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. This is my final Wednesday. I'll be gone next Wednesday. I'll be going out of town for a little over a week. My son Derek is playing with LAFC, and he has got a national tournament. And looking forward to seeing what he and his team are able to do. By the way, you can actually catch an article here on your hometown station on Facebook featuring the LAFC team. They are an unstoppable team here. And for those of us in Santa Clarita, we should be proud of our young men that have engaged in sports and are participating in these events. These are kids that have put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. So I'll be gone next Wednesday, but Samuel Green who is a right-to-life attorney who has done Supreme Court amicus briefs, will be sitting in for me next week, Wednesday, and we'll be talking about some of the pro-life issues as well. And by the way, this Friday, there is a abolitionist meeting down in Norwalk, California, just about 70 miles south of us here in Santa Clarita, which I'll be attending. And we'll be listening to what our abolitionist friends have to say about the abortion issue and where we are in terms of that. Let me also just mention we have two Democratic representatives here in our district in Santa Clarita. We have Congressman George Whitesides, and we have Assemblywoman Pilar Chavo. And I just need to tell you that because this is an election year going into 2026, and this is going to be their first legitimate election in order to get reelected, I believe that they're going to position themselves as very, very much a moderate. And so I just want you to notice the way they vote and how they say what they say, all right? And so I do believe they're savvy enough as politicians to understand that not everybody in the district is where they are in terms of progressive, over-the-top types of policies. They know that there are some moderate Democrats that live here in the district, that there are some what I would consider old-school Democrats and some George Bush Republicans that can be persuadable. And I think it will be important to see how they run. I'm also going to be in talks with some individuals to see if we can get someone to run against Assemblywoman Chavo, who, by the way, I need to be just very clear, has been very nice to me, and I have reciprocated in kind. As a pastor, if a politician reaches out to me, I am going to give them the time of day. I am going to listen, and if they ask for my input, I'm going to give it. I may not agree with everything. In fact, I had a great conversation with the Assemblywoman a few weeks ago here locally, and we had a great conversation for about an hour. And it's very clear that we do not see eye to eye on a whole host of issues, but we were able to leave amicably. Now, and I think that is the strategy with both George Whitesides as well as Pilar Chavo. But I do think we have got at least one Republican right now in the race that I'm aware of that is going to be running against George. And there just may be also a dark horse Republican that is going to jump in the race here very, very soon as well. I can't mention who, but there is a possibility as well. And then I will have a conversation with somebody today about the possibility of someone running against Assemblywoman Chavo. Let me also kind of go pivot back to the situation in Texas. When you have a bunch of hot weather, that the earth is scorched, and all of a sudden, after several days of no rain, several months, several weeks of no rain, and then all of a sudden you get a monsoonal boost of rain, where you get 3, 4, 5 inches of rain within a very brief, short time. Well, where does the water go? I mean, it can't go back into the soil because it's coming down at such a rapid rate that it can't just go back into the soil. So it's going to run off the top of the soil, and it's going to do what water often does. It's going to find the lowest possible place for it to go. And unfortunately, that is what we have experienced there in Kerrville, Texas. And what I'm hearing, there's also flooding going on in New Mexico, which is the adjoining state to Texas. And they're having monsoonal storms that are they're huge. And we need to understand that there's no real great predictor for this kind of stuff. Let's say some of you probably remember a few weeks ago when there was a small earthquake here in Santa Clarita, and we got a little warning on our cell phones. I remember sitting in my den. My wife and I were watching a movie, and all of a sudden we got this little thing that sounded like an Amber Alert, and it said earthquake detected and said a few other things. And then all of a sudden, right after I read that, I felt the tremor. Now that's awesome. I'm glad that we're able to do something like that today when 5 minutes ago that would not be something we'd ever think about. But when it comes to a rain event, when it comes to monsoonal moisture, that stuff comes fast. You could wake up on a Texas morning in the summer and it would be completely blue skies. And then by mid-afternoon, it starts to cloud up, and then all of a sudden by 3 o'clock, it is just coming down like you would not believe, and it comes fast. And we don't really experience that a whole bunch in California. Yes, occasionally we get a monsoonal summer where, we'll get some of this mountain moisture that'll kind of dip into the valley, but not to the extent that they do in Texas and in other parts of the country. And we just got to keep in mind that rain of that magnitude, it happens. It happens. And it was very unfortunate that it came through that camp and so many children were killed. And again, the count is over 100 at the moment, and who knows how much more will be found. And let me also say that I was watching a show the other day. I don't know if you ever watch Sky News Australia, but they were talking about how progressives were going online, and these were black progressives, by the way, who were basically saying, why do we have to show pity for these white girls that are being, taken away by the floodwaters? If they were black girls, would you feel the same way? Would the news go on about it? And folks, these are the same people that talk about how we should have empathy. These are the same people that say we ought to have compassion, and then this is how they talk. Folks, empathy taken to its logical conclusion becomes destructive. You cannot totally walk in somebody's shoes completely. You just can't. And these progressive leftists that, let's say gave Mondani the victory in New York for the Democratic primary, they don't know what they have voted for. They have made a calculated error, and they don't realize it yet. And these are the folks that are going to be taking over our country at some point. And we have got to do a better job in our universities. We've got to do a better job in our homes of educating these individuals. I don't think we should leave it to the universities, but the fact of the matter is the universities have got them. And this is the natural fruit of that type of education. Looking forward to being out of town next week. Samuel Green will be stepping in for me. And looking forward to being back with you in a couple of weeks. Hope you guys enjoy your summer. Thank you so much for tuning in today on Politics in the Pulpit and for listening to your hometown station. We'll catch you in 2 weeks.